This happened to me 2 years ago on Halloween night of 2023. My name is Emily, I'm 23 now, but at the time, I was 21 and in my junior year of college. I'm sharing this story because I want people to understand how easily something like this can happen, and how important it is to always stay aware even when you think you're being safe. So let me set the scene. It was Halloween, obviously, and my best friend Jessica was throwing a party at her off-campus apartment. Nothing crazy, just about 20 people, some music, Halloween decorations everywhere, and everyone was in costumes. I had dressed up as Harley Quinn. I spent way too much money on the costume, the wig, the makeup, everything. I wanted it to look good, and honestly it did. Accented, I got a lot of compliments that night. The party was fun. We played some drinking games, took a bunch of photos, danced around like idiots. It was exactly what I needed after a stressful week of midterms. But around 11:00 p.m., I started feeling tired. I had an important exam the next morning at 9:00 a.m., organic chemistry, and I really couldn't afford to skip it or show up hungover. I wasn't drunk or anything. I had maybe 2 drinks over the course of 4 hours, so I was completely sober. But I was exhausted, and I knew I needed to get home and get some sleep. Jessica's apartment was about 4 miles from my dorm, too far to walk, especially at night and in costume. So I did what I always did. I pulled out my phone and opened the rideshare app to call a taxi. The app said a driver would arrive in about 3 minutes. His name was Mark. He was driving a gray Honda Civic, license plate number ending in 742, and he had a 4.8 rating. Pretty standard. I confirmed the ride and went outside to wait. It was a cold night, typical for late October. The wind was blowing pretty hard, and I remember pulling my jacket tighter around me as I stood on the sidewalk in front of Jessica's building. The street was still semi-busy with people walking around in costumes, cars driving by, the usual weekend college town energy. But it was starting to thin out. A lot of people had already gone home or moved on to bars downtown. I was on my phone texting my mom, letting her know I was on my way back to the dorm. She always liked to know when I was traveling at night, which I appreciated. My phone was at 15 battery, which annoyed me because I forgot to charge it before leaving for the party. But I figured it would be fine. The ride was only supposed to take about 10 minutes. A couple of cars passed by. Then I saw a gray Honda Civic slow down and pull up to the curb in front of me. I glanced at the license plate. It ended in numbers that looked right, though I'll admit I didn't look super carefully. I was cold, tired, and just wanted to get home. The car looked exactly like what the app said. Gray Honda Civic. Check. I opened the back door and slid into the seat. The interior smelled like cigarettes and one of those overpowering pine tree air fresheners. It wasn't pleasant, but I've been in worse rideshare cars. The driver was an older guy, probably in his 50s, with thinning gray hair and a thin build. He didn't turn around to look at me, which I thought was a little odd but not uncommon. Some drivers are just quiet and prefer not to chat. I said, "Hey, Emily. I'm going to Riverside Dorms on Campus Drive." He just nodded without saying anything and started driving. Accented, no confirmation of my name, no small talk, nothing. Again, I didn't think much of it. Some people just don't like talking, especially late at night. I put my seatbelt on, pulled out my phone, and started scrolling through Instagram, looking at pictures from the party that people were already posting. The first couple of minutes felt normal. We were driving through the usual streets near Jessica's place, heading in what I assumed was the direction of campus. I wasn't paying close attention to the route because I was on my phone. I trusted that the driver knew where he was going. That was my first mistake. There was no music playing in the car, which I found a little strange. Most drivers have the radio on or some kind of playlist. But this guy had nothing. Just silence except for the sound of the engine and the wind outside. It made the car feel even more uncomfortable, but I still didn't think anything was seriously wrong. I just figured he was one of those no-nonsense drivers who wanted to get the job done and move on to the next ride. After about 5 minutes, I looked up from my phone and glanced out the window. That's when I felt the first real twinge of anxiety. We were driving through an area I didn't recognize. It wasn't the usual route to campus. In fact, we seemed to be heading toward the industrial part of town, where there were a bunch of old warehouses and not much else. The street was darker, fewer streetlights, and I didn't see any other cars around. I sat up a little straighter and said, "Excuse me, I think you're going the wrong way. My dorm is back in that direction." The driver didn't respond. He didn't even acknowledge that I had spoken. He just kept driving, eyes straight ahead. I said it louder this time. "Sir, you need to turn around. This isn't the right way." That's when he finally spoke. Accented, his voice was low, calm, almost emotionless. He said, "Gaps says this way. Faster road." But I knew the area. I had lived in this town for 3 years. There was no faster route that took you through the industrial district. Campus was in the opposite direction. My heart started beating faster. Something was wrong. I immediately opened the rideshare app on my phone to check the route the driver was supposed to be taking. And that's when my stomach dropped. The app showed that my driver, Mark, was still parked outside Jessica's apartment building. The status said, "Driver is waiting for you." There was even a little countdown timer showing how long he had been waiting. I stared at the screen, my brain trying to make sense of what I was seeing. If Mark was still at Jessica's place, then who the hell was driving this car? I looked at the license plate number displayed in the app and compared it to the one I had glanced at when I got in the car. The last digit was different. It wasn't 742. It was 749. I had been in such a hurry, so tired, that I didn't double-check carefully enough. Accented, I wasn't in a rideshare. I was in some random stranger's car. Panic hit me like a wave. My hands started shaking, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I needed to get out of this car immediately. I reached for the door handle and pulled it, but nothing happened. The door wouldn't open. The child lock was on. "Let me out," I said, trying to keep my voice steady but failing. "Let me out right now." The driver didn't respond. He didn't even slow down. If anything, he pressed harder on the gas. The car sped up. Accented, "Let me out." I screamed this time, louder, my voice cracking. Still nothing. He just kept driving. I fumbled with my phone, my fingers barely working because my hands were shaking so badly. I dialed 911. The phone rang once, then twice. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. That's when I saw his eyes clearly for the first time. They were cold. Empty. There was no emotion in them at all. The 911 operator answered. 911, what's your emergency? I'm in a car with someone I don't know, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I was terrified that speaking too loudly would set him off. I thought it was my rideshare, but it's not. He won't let me out. He's driving me somewhere, I don't know where. Please help me. Okay, stay calm, the operator said. Can you tell me where you are? I looked out the window, trying to find a street sign. We were passing a row of abandoned warehouses. Everything looked the same. Then I saw a sign. We're on Industrial Park Road. Near some old warehouses. I don't know the exact address. Okay, officers are being dispatched to your location. Stay on the line with me. Do not hang up. The driver must have heard me because suddenly he slammed on the brakes. Accented, the car came to a sharp stop and I lurched forward, my seatbelt catching me hard across the chest. He turned around in his seat and looked right at me. Put the phone down, he said. His voice was still calm, but there was an edge to it now. A threat? No, I said, clutching the phone tighter. I'm not putting it down. The police are coming. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, without saying anything, he reached over the seat toward me. I screamed and swung the phone at his hand, hitting him hard enough that he pulled back and cursed under his breath. He turned back around, put the car in drive, and started driving again, even faster this time. I could hear the operator's voice coming from my phone. Emily, are you still there? Yes, I'm here, I said, my voice shaking. He tried to grab my phone. He's driving faster now. Stay on the line. Officers are close. Can you see any landmarks? I looked out the window again. We were getting farther from the main road, driving onto a narrow gravel path that led toward a cluster of old buildings. There was a chain link fence up ahead, and beyond it, what looked like an abandoned warehouse. He's taking me to some kind of warehouse, I said. There's a fence. I don't know where this is. The car slowed down as we approached the fence. The driver pulled up to a spot where the fence had a gap in it, like someone had cut through it. He stopped the car and turned off the engine. My blood went cold. If he got me out of this car and into that building, I knew I wouldn't make it out. He opened his door and stepped out. I could hear him walking around to the back of the car. I heard the trunk pop open. Accented, what the hell was he doing? I didn't wait to find out. I scrambled into the front seat, climbing over the center console. My legs got tangled in my Harley Quinn costume, and I almost fell, but I caught myself. I reached for the driver's side door and saw the unlock button on the panel. I slammed my hand down on it. The locks clicked open. I shoved the door open and threw myself out of the car. I hit the ground hard, my knees scraping against the gravel, but I didn't care. I got up and ran. Behind me, I heard him yell something, but I couldn't make out the words. I didn't look back. I just ran as fast as I could toward the main road. My lungs burned, and my legs felt like they were going to give out, but I kept going. I could hear his footsteps behind me. Heavy boots pounding against the gravel. Accented, he was chasing me. I pushed myself harder, running faster than I ever had in my life. The main road was up ahead. I could see the streetlights. I was almost there. And then I saw headlights. A car was driving down the road. I ran out into the middle of the street, waving my arms frantically. Help! Please help me. The car screeched to a stop. It was a young couple, probably in their late 20s. The man rolled down his window, looking alarmed. Please, I gasped, barely able to breathe. Someone is chasing me. Please let me in. The woman in the passenger seat immediately unlocked the back door. I jumped in and the man locked the doors behind me. I turned around and looked through the back window. The man who had been chasing me was standing at the edge of the gravel road, just staring. He didn't come any closer. He just stood there watching. Then, slowly, he turned around and walked back toward his car. Are you okay? What happened if... The woman asked, turning around to look at me. I got in the wrong car, I said, my voice shaking. I thought it was my rideshare, but it wasn't. He was taking me somewhere. I don't know what he was going to do. The man pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. I already called them, I said. They should be on their way. We waited there on the side of the road for about 10 minutes. The couple stayed with me the entire time, making sure I was okay, offering me water and a blanket from their trunk. I was still shaking, my whole body trembling from the adrenaline. When the police arrived, I told them everything. I described the car, a gray Honda Civic with a license plate ending in 749. I described the driver, a man in his 50s with thinning gray hair, thin build, cold eyes. I told them about the warehouse, the gravel road, the gap in the fence. Several officers went to search the area, but when they got there, the car was gone. They found tire tracks and some footprints, but no sign of the man or the vehicle. It was like he had just vanished. A detective came to talk to me later that night at the hospital where my parents had taken me to get checked out. He told me that this wasn't the first time something like this had happened in the area. Over the past 6 months, there had been several reports of fake rideshare incidents where someone would pose as a driver and pick up unsuspecting passengers. 2 young women had gone missing under similar circumstances. They were never found. He said they believed it was the same person, but they hadn't been able to identify or catch him yet. The car he was driving was likely stolen or using fake plates, which is why they couldn't track it down. Hearing that made everything feel so much worse. I realized how close I had come to being one of those missing girls. If I hadn't checked the app when I did, if I hadn't called 911, if that couple hadn't stopped to help me, I don't think I'd be here right now. I spent that night in the hospital for observation because I was in shock. My parents stayed with me the whole time. My mom couldn't stop crying, and my dad just kept saying how thankful he was that I was okay. I couldn't sleep at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man's face in the rearview mirror. The weeks after that were really hard. I couldn't focus in class. I had nightmares almost every night. I was terrified to go anywhere alone, even during the day. I started seeing a therapist, which helped, but it took a long time before I felt even remotely normal again. The police continued their investigation, but they never found the man. He's still out there somewhere. Every now and then, I think I see him. In a grocery store, at a gas station, walking down the street. My heart stops for a second, and then I realize it's just someone who looks similar. But that fear never fully goes away. It's been 2 years now, and I'm doing better. But I'm also different. I'm more cautious, more aware. I never take a rideshare alone at night anymore. If I have to, I make sure someone knows exactly where I am and who my driver is. I always check the license plate number at least 3 times. I ask the driver to confirm my name before I get in. And if anything feels off, even slightly, I cancel the ride and request a new one. I'm sharing this story because I want people to understand how easy it is to make a mistake like I did. You think you're being careful, you think you're doing everything right, but all it takes is one moment of distraction, one small oversight, and you can end up in serious danger. So please, if you're listening to this, take it seriously. Always verify your ride before you get in. Check the license plate, check the driver's photo, ask them to confirm your name. Don't just assume it's the right car because it's the right make and model. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. I was lucky. I got away. But those 2 other girls didn't, and I think about them all the time. I think about their families waiting for answers that might never come. And I think about how easily I could have been in their place. Accented, stay safe out there. And always pay attention.